We love it when Stephen Miller lectures the media, and he did it today in epic fashion. You're going to see every minute of it, and you're going to love it. Also, did Gretchen Whitmer ruin her political career? One photograph from the New York Times could, in fact, call the end of any aspirations Gretchen Whitmer had for higher office. Plus, have you noticed that the media always likes to repeat the same word over and over and over and over again? Our friend Western Lensman caught him and put together a great montage of the chaos that you're seeing in the economy. Chaos. Have you heard that it's chaos because of the tariffs? And finally, Taylor Lorenz is really bad, but CNN may be even worse. We'll show you what they put out there coming up next. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. I think it's fair to say that the announcement of the tariffs that the federal government has levied on countries around the world has made things somewhat uncertain in markets, global markets, the American market, right? Potential widespread inflation is tied to a massive supply chain disruption. It's weighing heavily on a lot of people, but there is a silver lining that most people have missed. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from these sweeping tariffs. Did you catch that? Yeah, no, you didn't. That's why you get news and information here instead of from those other hacks. That's right. While these new policies are triggering significant financial disturbances, the administration preserved your ability to diversify into precious metals. So if you're concerned about your savings, have a free consultation with Birch Gold. Contact a Birch Gold precious metal specialist. All you have to do is text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. You'll receive a free no obligation info kit on gold and learn how to hold gold in a tax-sheltered account. Birch Gold is going to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k, an account you've already got. This is not new money. It's the money you've got. We're going to convert that into a gold IRA for no money out of pocket for you. How many offers do you get where it doesn't cost you any money out of pocket? It's time to diversify. And why not with a A+ rated organization from the Better Business Bureau like Birch Gold? Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Again, Larry to 989898. Get that info kit in gold and do it today. There's a lot of misinformation out there with regard to tariffs, with regard to immigration and border security, with regard to tax policy. You need a good, competent, clear-speaking spokesperson from the White House to cut through all of the lies from the fake news. And this White House has plenty of players in that regard. Certainly Caroline Leavitt, the spokesperson for the White House. But if you think about it, almost every cabinet secretary has exemplar media skills. And I want to draw your attention to one of our favorites. He's not your typical, news on camera personality. He's got some quirks, but he's great because he doesn't care what the media thinks about him. He's the deputy chief of staff of the White House. He's Stephen Miller, and he has forgotten more about border security and immigration policies than you're ever going to know. And I'm sure you've seen headlines out there about a Supreme Court ruling that demanded that the Trump White House bring back that Maryland father, the one with MS-13 tattoos and associated with MS-13 criminal gang members the time he was in this country illegally. Yeah, that guy. He's just a Maryland father, just like the rest of you. And I'm sure you saw that the Supreme Court unanimously demanded that the Trump White House return him from the El Salvadoran jail that he's currently in. The problem is that's not true. The Supreme Court did not say that, but that didn't stop every network all weekend long from repeating that lie. So Stephen Miller confronted the press this morning in the front driveway of 1600 Pennsylvania, and I want you to watch.
Hey, I'm good. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Who wants to go first?
I'll ask, do you plan on ramping up the administration plan on ramping up deportations to El Salvador? And how many people do you want El Salvador to take from the United States?
Well, as an example, there are thousands of either trained Nicaragua members left in this country or their affiliates and associates. So obviously some portion of those will be going to El Salvador as part of our effort to eradicate this foreign terrorist organization from the United States. But there's no upper limit to the agreement. We're going to continue to send foreign terrorist aliens to El Salvador as well as to many other countries. I think you were first, I think.
Is the president asking President Bukele today to send Mr. Franco Garcia back to the U.S.?
Well, again, to be very clear about this, the Supreme Court ruled that the district court cannot, obviously, compel us to conduct diplomacy or foreign policy with another nation. And so they overturned the district court order. And they said very clearly that the district court, it was actually a unanimous ruling, overreached in that ruling. I'm not going to reveal any head of state conversations or conversations at the State Department or the lower level. But the important point that we all agree on is that he's an El Salvadorian. That is his country of nativity and citizenship. He is an illegal alien in the United States. He has no lawful right to be here. He was issued a final order of removal from this country. And so it's up to El Salvador and to the government and the people of El Salvador what the fate of their own citizens is. We can't extradite citizens of foreign countries to our country over the objection of those countries. Obviously, to do that would be a monstrous violation of international law. We can't go into other countries and kidnap their citizens and then take them back into our country. That's up to El Salvador and their own.
All right, so let me just pause there real fast. By the way, a lot of the background here in terms of why these questions are coming up today, other than just the Supreme Court ruling that came down last week and all of the misinformation, but the president of El Salvador, President Bukele, is actually in Washington, D.C. and will be meeting with the president all day today. So they're saying, well, are you going to tell him to return this guy to the United States? I just want to reiterate, he is a citizen of El Salvador. He is currently in El Salvador. As Miller just pointed out, who the hell are we to tell the president of a foreign nation that he must send one of his citizens back to this country where he has no legal status? He was in this country illegally. It's again, I feel like I'm in like fantasy land sometimes, or through the looking glass when you hear about how the media is covering this story, or better yet, not covering this story, at least not covering the facts of this story. Again, the language that was in the Supreme Court ruling specifically told the lower court that they can't tell the White House or the executive branch how to conduct any diplomacy or any communications with a foreign country having to do with a foreign national, and can't compel them to remit or exclude anybody from coming into the country. That's not the purview of the federal court system. What they said was that because the administration admitted that this person had been, through an administrative error, included in this group of Venezuelans that went down to El Salvador, that they should facilitate his removal from the prison. That's it. Facilitate the removal from the prison. And I'm sure when the president is meeting with Bukele today, I want to say ukulele. I don't know why, because it sounds like that. When he meets with Bukele today, he says, oh, by the way, that guy that's your Salvadoran citizen who's got all the gang tattoos and claims he's not in a gang, apparently he's in the prison there. If you wouldn't mind, why don't you release him from the prison until he can be tried in your courts? There. Simple. Done. But it didn't end, because the media is sure that they've got the facts on their side, when in fact they have no facts on their side. And Miller patiently educates them.
But it's their own citizen, right? So remember, this whole entire conversation has been wrong from the beginning, because nobody was mistakenly deported anywhere. That's like the big fact that most of you have gotten wrong. No one was mistakenly sent anywhere. The only mistake that was made is a lawyer put an incorrect line in a legal filing, and they've since been relieved of duty. He is El Salvadorian. He is an illegal alien. He was deported to El Salvador. I would welcome anyone here to tell me what country they think we should be sending El Salvadorian illegal aliens to.
Didn't a judge order that he not be deported to El Salvador 5 years ago?
So what you're referring to is an immigration judge. So that's Article 2, not Article 3. So there was no Article 3 restraint on his removal. A withholding order or a cancellation of removal order, first of all, as I'm sure you know, does not eliminate the deportation order, right? We all agree on that. So his status was, he's an illegal alien who's been ordered deported, which means he can be indefinitely detained and removed to any other country in the world, right?
All right, in case you missed that, because Miller is incredibly smart, an Article 2 judge is an administrative judge that works within an executive, within the executive branch of government. It's not Article 3, which is the judicial branch, Supreme Court, right? So what happens is, whether it's the EPA or whether it's the Department of Labor or whether in this case it's the Department of Homeland Security, you have these judges, and these judges adjudicate administrative issues within the executive branch if there is a legal conflict. Now, everybody has a right to appeal those things and actually utilize the Article 3, which is the third branch of government, court system to try to, defend your constitutional rights. But of course, understand this guy doesn't have any rights of a citizen because he's in the country illegally. So 99 out of 100 times, if somebody is ordered ripe for deportation from an Article 2 administrative judge within the Department of Homeland Security, they're out of here. They're donezo. They're gone. The federal court system is not going to wade into that kind of thing because it's not their jurisdiction, because the executive branch has the right to adjudicate these things on their own. That's what Miller is explaining here. And I do love that he says to these reporters with their really fancy journalism degrees from Northwestern University, where they learn to ignore Antifa and assassination attempts on Donald Trump, that, of course, you know that already, which they don't know that already. They barely got through Schoolhouse Rock. But let's get back to Miller.
Right, he could be sent to literally any country on the face of the earth. But the preference, in general matter, is to deport someone to their home country, right? In this case, El Salvador. Because he is a member of a foreign terrorist organization, withholding orders don't apply to FTOs for obvious reasons. So if you had an illegal alien, say, from Syria, who's a member of ISIS, they can't apply for withholding of removal. So that principle applies here. Furthermore, the gang that he said was going to persecute him, so this theory that he's an MS-13 and there's this rival gang, the 18th Street Gang, doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. So the entire concept is false. But again,
he's going to repeat things here for a second because the media doesn't get it, but I hope you caught that, because you're hearing misinformation all over the place. Well, 5 years ago, a judge said that you can't remove him because he's in fear for his life back to that country. All right, so now people assume that that's some sort of asylum claim because he fears for his life from the government of the country he's being sent to, like he's some sort of political dissident. No, he's a gang member. And he was afraid that if he went back to the mean streets of El Salvador, he'd be hunted down by the rival gang member. Now, that may be a legitimate fear, or it was 5 years ago, but that ain't our problem. I'm sorry, our asylum system in the United States of America is not set up to protect people from a rival gang. Are you kidding me? That's not legit. And whether a judge was hoodwinked by that or not is a dead matter at this point, as Miller just laid out, because that gang that he was afraid of if he went back to El Salvador doesn't exist anymore. So he doesn't have a legitimate fear. He wants to stay in America with all his other MS-13 buddies so he can chop up innocent people with machetes and leave their bodies to rot in a creek near Washington, D.C. and Fairfax Park, as happens often in this region, and they can continue to stay on top of their huge drug ring that's here. That's why they're here. Not because they're fleeing torment in their own country. It's because they come here to set up a larger gang enterprise. And that's what this guy is accused of doing in the first place. And bottom line is, he's not a citizen. He came here illegally. And if he even consorts with criminal gang members, we have the right to deport him. You need to, even if you're a legal resident in this country with a legal green card, you are under conditions to stay. We can send you back home anytime we want if you break the rules of the guest residency that we have offered you. You're not a citizen. So I just want to make sure you got that, because this is misinformation that you're hearing all over the place. Oh, a judge granted him the chance to stay here because he's afraid he'd get killed. Not from the government, from a rival gang that no longer exists. Buddy, go home. Bye-bye.
When the media talks about the idea that there was a mistaken removal, it implies to, I think, a normal listener, the wrong person was sent somewhere. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador. Where was he sent? To El Salvador. Where does he belong? In El Salvador. He belongs.
Sending someone home and sending them into a prison that they can remove.
It is up to El Salvador how to handle the process for their own citizens. Again, what you seem to be asking us to do is to change the government and the laws of El Salvador. So if we deport somebody back to, for example, Syria, should we be closely involved on a day-to-day basis with the Syrian government, detailing that person's life and future? If we deport, say, 100,000 people back to Haiti, Should we open a case file on each of those 100,000 people and ask every day, what's their housing situation? What's their healthcare situation? What might they need? What might they want? Once someone's out of our country, that becomes the problem of their host country, not our country. These people chose to invade us. So there's a lot of concern from the corporate media about the invaders, but they chose to invade us. It's our responsibility to return them back to where they came from, or another country willing to take them.
Stephen, is the president going to ask for him to be returned to the United States or not? Like, yes or no?
So first of all, it's not a question for me to answer, but I think that the assumption that underlies the question is what needs to be corrected, which is that there was no mistake that was made. He was sent. So what? Let me ask you, what do you think would happen to him if he came back to this country? As your understanding of immigration laws, what do you think would happen?
But I'm just asking.
No, it's important to know. You're asking a lot of questions. You are all asking a lot of questions about this, and you all seem to care about it a lot. So let's see if any of you have researched anything about this issue at all. Can anyone here tell me what would happen to the illegal alien from El Salvador if he came back to the United States? Does anyone here know? Does anyone want to guess? Any of you?
He could be with his family.
What does any of you know the answer to the question? Legally, what would happen if he came back here? Does any of you know? Any of you?
Do you really
You've been writing. I'm talking now. You need to stop. I'm talking now. Does any of you?
Why was it unanimous?
You're done. Does any of you know the answer to the question? Does any of you? You've been talking about it for days.
Would deport him again, no?
He would be arrested.
Okay.
He'd be put in confinement. He would be deported the second time to El Salvador again, because there's no withholding order for an alien who's a member of a foreign terrorist organization, number one. Number two is the gang that he's a member of doesn't exist in El Salvador anymore. So what you're asking for is to be deported twice. But additionally, if we chose to just pretend that the withholding order was real, he would be deported to a different country. So, for example, he could be deported to Egypt. So I'm just trying to understand, is it your view, in other words, you have to find a country that would be willing to take a MS-13 member from El Salvador. So I'm trying to understand from you all is, so if he came back and under our laws, he was then deported to Egypt or to Somalia, would you then be saying, great, I'm so glad that you deported him to another country? Is that what you'd all be saying? Like, do you understand our immigration laws at all? But the premise of your question, the gentlemen, the return, guys, do you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Do you know the difference? Any of you, please. Do you?
Well, we're not in the government.
But you couldn't even spend 72 hours over the weekend learning the distinction, even though you've been writing and talking about it this whole time. Everyone just raise this, please. Just raise your hand. Does any of you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order?
How do you know that he's a member of MS-13? Why hasn't he previously said according to intelligence?
By the way, according to our government and his government. In other words, his government has confirmed based on their own intelligence that he's a member of MS-13. First of all, do you dispute that he's an illegal alien? Do you dispute that he's an illegal alien?
No.
Okay. And do you dispute that as an illegal alien, we have the right to deport him? And he went through the legal process. So I want to be very what I'm getting from this conversation, which is educational for me, is that not one person in the media knows the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order. Is that a fair statement? You're learning about this all for the first time right now? I guess so. Okay. So a deportation order means the judge has said he must be deported from the country. He has no right to remain here any longer. He must be removed from the country. So his only options are to be deported to his home country or another country. That's it. There's no other option. He doesn't get to stay here. He doesn't get to live here. He has no future here. He has no right to be here. He's an illegal alien. So when you keep saying return, because you've been spun up by the open borders advocates, you all seem to be operating under the illusion that he would be able to come to the United States and just continue to live here illegally. That's not an option available to him. His only choices in life are to live in El Salvador or to live in another country. That's it. There's no other option, legally or otherwise, because he came to our country illegally. Do you understand that?
Can I ask as a matter?
No, they do not understand that. They don't understand that in any way whatsoever. God, that was glorious. What was your favorite part, by the way? I'd love for you to let us know in the chat or in the comments. In fact, I know you like this video, so where's our likes? Let's get the thumbs up going, because we're a little, it's Monday morning. You guys are a little sluggish today. That was brilliant. My favorite part personally was when he started literally conducting a class and started asking, okay, could I see a show of hands here? Who knows the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Anybody? Anyone? Anyone? Yes? No? Maybe? God, that's good. Okay, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you know the difference. Yet you've all been talking about it all weekend long, and you didn't bother to just go ask Grok. Go do a quick chat GPT. They write half your scripts anyway. You've already got your gold premium account with ChatGPT. Might as well just ask them one more question. What's the difference between a deportation order? Deportation order, by the way, is called a removal order, a legal directive. Says get this guy out of the country. That's what this guy is. I do. Part of me wishes that the Trump administration would say, "Okay, everybody, you will have it your way, and get this guy, ask Bukele from El Salvador. Would you return him to us, please?" And get him right in the Miami airport, immediately arrest him with all the cameras watching, put him right into a withholding cell, bring in an immigration judge right there at the airport, hear the hearing, have him deported, and then send him to Gaza. Here, we're going to deport him now, and I know you don't want him to go to El Salvador because he's afraid he's going to get killed by a criminal gang that doesn't exist anymore. So you're going to have it your way, everybody. We're sending him to Gaza. Happy now? There. Got what you wanted. Listen, I understand these are confusing times for people as they actually see our immigration laws enforced and our borders secured again. And you're confused. You don't understand what this looks like. I've been saying this since the beginning of the videos showing Tom Homan and Kristi Noem going out there and bagging the bad guy in the middle of, lower east side of Manhattan, and they get deported. And when you saw the videos of the people on the planes going into the jail in El Salvador, it's not about that guy they caught on the streets of Manhattan, and it's not about the plane load of criminal thug terrorists that they sent out to El Salvador. It's about everybody who's here right now. It's about everybody else saying, my God, they mean it this time. And I have two choices. Well, I have three choices. My first choice is I can leave, go back home, take whatever money I've got with me that I've been able to earn, and start the process again to try to come back to America legally. Or I can wait for them to catch me, and I leave, and I never get to come back legally, and I don't get any of the money. In fact, they're going to fine me and send me to a jail. Or third, I can try to hide. I can hide and pretend none of this is happening and live in the shadows, as we've been hearing for decades about the illegal immigrants in this country. And it may be weird for you to see our laws being enforced this way. It may be weird for you to see an administration with a robust immigration policy and border security policy exercising it in public so the world can see that we mean business. I know that you're not used to that. Honestly, we haven't seen it since the Eisenhower administration, which means we have never seen it at all in our lifetimes, most of us. But let's just be clear on what's going on here. For the past 4 years, the Biden administration with Kamala Harris and Alejandro Mayorkas let every type of criminal and terrorist into this country without any kind of check. It was a free-for-all. The border was wide open. Chaos ensued and continues to reign in many of the neighborhoods where these illegal immigrants wreak their terror right now. You don't flip that overnight. And as you start rounding people up and sending them out by the thousands and tens of thousands, there may be one or two people who, yes, are in the country illegally, but maybe they didn't deserve to be sent out. Yeah, that might happen. You know why? Because they were let in the first place. That's what happens when you're trying to clean up a completely, totally chaotic mess that was inflicted on this peaceful nation during the Biden administration. I'm angry about it too. You have every right to be. But don't be angry at the people who are trying to clean up the mess. Be angry at the people who made the mess. And always remember what they've done to this country. And for everyone else in this country illegally who is now terrified at this, who's like, oh my gosh, I could be next. My answer to you is yes. That's right. You could be next. So contact the federal government, register with them through the app, let them know who you are, let them know where you are, let them know that you're living a clean, legal life, let them know that you're checking in, that you're not consorting with terrorists or gang members, and you're doing your best to keep your nose clean and eventually go through the process legally, even if that means going back to your home country. For the most part, you're probably not going to be bothered until all of the thugs are taken care of. But at some point, the federal government is, in fact, going to knock on your door and say, okay, you broke our laws. You're in this country illegally. You're working in this country illegally. You continue to remain in this country illegally. It's time for you to take responsibility for your actions and clean up this mess. That's going to happen because that's what grown-up countries do. And, well, the grown-ups are back in charge. Hey, thank you for liking this video. And if you do like this video, it means you like Town Hall Media. And I would love for you to become a VIP member of Town Hall Media. Just go to townhallvip.com. And when you purchase your VIP membership, you will get 50% off if you use my name, Larry, at checkout. What do you get? Well, you get all of our Town Hall sites with an advertisement-free experience. That means Town Hall, Hot Air, PJ Media, Red State, Twitchy, and Bearing Arms. But also you get exclusive content, podcasts, video streams, live streams, columns and articles that are only reserved for our VIP members. Plus, you support the journalism that we do on a daily basis so that we can be free from the advertising boycotts that happened in abundance during the Biden administration and during COVID-19. You know, we got an advertisement boycott because we dared to write articles suggesting that the COVID virus came from a lab in Wuhan. That's right. They tried to demonetize us and deplatform, but we survived and we thrived because of our VIP members. So if you like what we do, go to townhallvip.com and use my name, Larry, at checkout. That's townhallvip.com. Use Larry at checkout. Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of the state of Michigan, my home state. And everybody thinks that Gretchen Whitmer could be president of the United States. In fact, according to this new book about the 2024 election, Barack Obama wanted Gretchen Whitmer to get the nomination over Kamala Harris. Now, personally, I think Gretchen Whitmer is a complete and total disaster, and she was awful during COVID-19 and the pandemic and the rules that she made for everybody. And she broke her own rules, by the way, as well as her husband in Michigan during the lockdown protocols that she put forth. That said, when you're a Democrat, you get away with this stuff. And she's from the Midwest. Everybody thinks, oh, she's reasonable. She can win the Midwest. She can win Michigan. We got to win Michigan again. You know how they think. All right, so she wants to do business with President Trump, specifically having to do with some industry and some military contracts for the state of Michigan. So she visited the White House. This is what responsible governors do, and she deserves some credit for that. So while she was in the White House waiting to have her meeting with President Trump, the staff ushered her into the Oval Office while Trump was finishing up some business. Trump saw her there while the cameras were rolling, and this is what happened.
Has this gotten into any of the other lakes yet? Because you would think it would be pretty easy because they're all sort of connected. Governor?
It's why we're working so hard to make sure that, we work with the Army Corps and erect a barrier so that the Asian carp can't get into Lake Michigan. It'll devastate the ecosystem, the economy, tourism, and it's 20% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes, Mr. President, which is why it's so important that as a nation, we protect the pristine waters. Yep.
And, all of a sudden, I assume the lakes are all interconnected, right? Yeah. So at some point, they're going to be in the other lakes. And so we're going to work hard on that. I spoke with
so there you go. There's a governor working with the president. She's a Democrat. She campaigned hard for Kamala Harris. He's a Republican. He's Trump, the bad orange man. But they're working. They're getting along. There you go. That helps Gretchen Whitmer's career advancement, right? So she can say, hey, I can work with people, right? And by the way, after her meeting, she actually had some things to say specifically about the tariffs.
Behind the tariffs. And I can tell you, here's where President Trump and I do agree. We do need to make more stuff in America, more cars and chips, more steel and ships. We do need fair trade.
There you go. So this is where I agree with President Trump. And this is where I get, listen, automotive industry is there, right? She's got the UAW workers that the Democrats have basically lost at this point. So she's trying to put together this whole narrative that she's pro-American labor and pro-American worker and pro-manufacturing and Trump is right about tariffs, stuff like that, right? Okay, great. But here's what happened. Over the weekend, the New York Times released a photograph of Gretchen Whitmer. At least we think it's Gretchen Whitmer. You see, what happened was when they ushered her into the Oval Office, I don't think she realized that the media was in the room. And when the New York Times photographer's lens turned and pointed toward her, she did this. She what is she acting like she's studying up on the meeting? Like she's reading her notes? God, that is such an with George Washington hovering above her. Profiles encouraged by Gretchen Whitmer. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Oh, I better study up before I meet with the president. I better read this. Did she think she was going to hide? What does she think this is, like a Harry Potter cloaking device or something? Do you remember that old sitcom Soap where the character Richard Mulligan thought that he could go invisible just by doing this? I'm dating myself now. That's a great show, though. So she sees that there's a photographer there. She freaks out, and her gut instinct is to hide her face. Oh, maybe I'll just do that. Maybe they won't know it's me. If I just put this folder in front of myself, I'll disappear. I'll just blend into the background. We're all wearing blue anyway, aren't we? Like they didn't know it was there. The caption, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan found herself in the Oval Office this week, not for a one-on-one meeting with President Trump, but an appearance before the press corps. She temporarily shielded herself from the cameras. So it's probably the greatest reporting that the New York Times has done in the last several years. And of course, it was because it was a photographer, not an actual reporter. Photographers are cut from a different cloth than the J School reporters that work at the New York Times. So this is now the indelible impression of who Gretchen Whitmer is. I mean, if J.D. Vance has to run against her in the general election in 2028, the first round of advertisements have just been written. This is the courageous, stand your ground, stand your principles, reasonable, I can reach out and work with the other side, Governor Whitmer, that she'd like you to think she is. Look at that. She's a punchline, as well she should be. By the way, before this image was released to the public, she and her press team went on a little bit of a went on a little bit of a publicity campaign to try to spin for the media exactly how her meeting with Trump went. So take a look at the way she wanted the world to think she approached the Oval Office.
How was the Oval Office yesterday?
Well, I think you heard the young man in there. You got to show up, right?
Okay. Did he
you want results, you got to show up. So I'm showing up for Michigan.
Did he make you feel comfortable?
I did not know. They walked me in. I thought I was going into our private meeting, and of course it was that press conference. But I did have the opportunity to chat with the president, as you heard him say, some great things about Selfridge, about protecting the Great Lakes. And I also, the primary purpose was to talk about the ice storm and the recovery that is ongoing.
Can I just say, she sort of freaks me out. There's something really, really odd about her. Like I don't know if she's had work on her face or she's over grooming her eyebrows but just with the angular face. And listen, I'm no, Hollywood movie star, nor do I try to be. And it has nothing to do with whether she's pretty or not. It's there's like this hard angular edge to her that sort of reminds me of everybody's ex-wife or everybody's evil stepmother. Like at any given moment, she is just going to lose it and have a conniption on you. She likes always on the brink of having one of those fits, right? Like she's talking to you very intently, and then the next thing you know, she's screaming at you to unload the dishwasher. Do you know what I'm saying? But what was that thing she said at the very beginning about her responsibility as the governor of Michigan? What was it again?
The Oval Office yesterday.
Well, I think you heard the young man in there. You got to show up, right?
You got to show up. Gretchen Whitmer, you got to show up. Yeah. You got to show up, man. That's Gretchen Whitmer showing up. Like I said, she freaks me out. Not just because of that, not just because well, here's the problem. When I think of Gretchen Whitmer, I go right back to this bizarro moment during the Kamala Harris campaign. Do you remember this? when she did this podcast with, isn't this woman who does this podcast like it's like a sexual oriented podcast, and I think they talk about a lot of like sex and stuff, and she's wearing the Harris Waltz fake Hunter. Ooh, I like my guns, and I like Tim Walz hat, which never went anywhere except as, again, a punchline or a joke. And this podcast host went down on her knees like she was receiving the Holy Eucharist in a Catholic church. And Whitmer, as I guess the priest, offered the Dorito, mocking communion and the real presence of the Lord. See, that's Gretchen Whitmer. That's the real Gretchen Whitmer. Unafraid, showing up. She's not shy. She's not hiding her face there. She's proud. Look at her face. That's Gretchen Whitmer. And this is Gretchen Whitmer. Will forever, always be Gretchen Whitmer. Profile and courage. Good for you, Gretch. Keep up the good work. You know what, Democrats? Nominate her. Do it. Hey, while you're over at Town Hall, I want you to check out our merch store because we have tons of Larry merch. Go to store.townhallmedia.com. You can buy a ton of stuff. It's actually full of really cool, patriotic, and funny swag. People in the office sort of come up with ideas and say, hey, we should have a shirt about this. We should have a mug about that. And then we do it. And then we make it. And then you buy it. But there's a whole line of Larry products. You can get your Larry mug so you can drink out of coffee at your office and have everybody think that they've been calling you the wrong name this whole time. That's pretty fun. There's also Larry golf shirts, Larry t-shirts, a whole line of Larry swag. That's all we allow Kevin McMahon, our producer, to wear around the office. He looks great, by the way. When he's wearing it. In fact, if he really wanted to go the extra mile and line himself up for that Christmas bonus, he'd change his name to Larry. But, well, he's not a go-getter. I bet you would do it. Anyway, go to store.townhallmedia.com. Get your Larry swag today. Have you noticed in the media that the teleprompter readers, the reporters, the journalists, the analysts who sit around the roundtable panel, you know the panels I'm talking about, where it's like 6-1 against a whole bunch of liberals who all agree with each other, and the one guy, you know, Scott Jennings or something. And of course, the politicians, the Democrats that they bring on, they all seem to be reading off the same script. Have you noticed that? Yeah, you're not alone. They do this all the time. Our friend, Western Lensman, who has a fantastic account on the X platform, I'm a subscriber. He curates videos. We use a lot of them here. And he's put together a great montage of the way the tariffs were reported on over the last week. See if you can pick up a trend.
We begin this hour with the chaos.
The average American sees chaos. The American people see chaos.
It's total chaos. You brought chaos.
It's just complete chaos.
Unleashed an economic chaos.
They unleash chaos.
They are creating chaos.
This chaos.
Well, there's too much chaos.
Total chaos.
That amidst the chaos,
we're going to see chaos.
After seeing all the chaos,
the chaos is unleashed on America.
Continue to see the chaos.
Economic chaos.
A lot more chaos.
Trump's chaos.
This is chaos. With such chaos.
The chaos because of this chaos. Chaos.
All of this chaos.
Uncertainty and chaos.
Given all that chaos.
When it's chaos.
All the chaos.
Chaos and confusion grow.
It's more chaos, dysfunction.
The chaos is the purpose. The chaos is the goal.
It's chaos.
Yeah, good job, Western Lensman. Again, subscribe to his channel. It's fantastic. Chaos. Did you notice? I'm sure you read between the lines and caught the magic word of the day. What did Pee Wee Herman use today? You have to scream every time you hear the word, or God forbid, you have to take a shot at tequila every time you hear the word. Chaos. Chaos. It was chaos. This is market-tested stuff. They go into a focus group, and they see that people don't want chaos, especially when it comes to their investments and their retirements and their 401k. So we're going to keep saying chaos, chaos, chaos. It's chaotic, right? And it's like a joke. It's so obvious that they do this. So then cut to yesterday's Sunday shows. Here's Elizabeth Warren on with furrowed brow Jake Tapper, who has his smart guy glasses on for this one. And he asked her, well, what do you think of the president's tariff policies? Because the fact is, Senator Warren, you have supported the idea of tariffs over the years. So what's the problem?
Well, let's keep in mind, tariffs can be an important tool in the toolbox
when used in targeted ways. But right now, what we've got is chaos and corruption.
We've added corruption to the chaos. Good for you, Elizabeth. That's impressive. And then Elizabeth Warren heads on over to the ABC studio, or really stays in whatever studio she's in, and they just changed the background behind her. Look, she's wearing the same outfit. And when asked about the policies this week,
Look, there is no tariff policy. It's just all chaos and corruption.
have you noticed a trend here? It's just chaos and corruption. It's the same thing over and over again. Like Andrew Breitbart used to say, the media is not bad because they're biased. It's because they suck. And the Democrats do the exact same thing over and over and over again. They just find these words and they repeat them. Now, listen, as a Republican, sometimes I'm jealous of this because I would love it if Republicans could stay on message like this and not continue to be free thinkers and come up with their own ideas and things that they say on their own. But darn it, we're just not made of the same material as Democrats are, who seem to be just fine marching off a cliff as lemmings as long as they stay on message and use the same words that their political handlers told them to use. And listen, Democrats are going to be Democrats. What bothers me is when the reporters do the same thing, when the journalists do the same thing, when the teleprompter readers who have journalism degrees do the same thing, when they pick up those words and they become part of the propaganda machine, when they become, shameless liars about politics. Remember this during the 2024 presidential election?
The one thing that I will not forgive them for is they tried to steal the joy from this country.
The joy felt by Americans backing the Harris-Walz ticket.
We are joyful warriors. Being joyful is part of the American identity.
The joy factor. Campaign of joy.
You're talking about radical joy.
It is downright joyful.
It looks like a joyous rally. It looks like a joyous occasion.
A real zeal and joy in the campaign.
The joy that you're bringing back to the country.
Joyful, exuberant rally.
Thank you for bringing back the joy.
Power of joy.
Hope and joy.
Something incredibly joyful.
She does it all with a sense of joy.
Joy.
Joy. Joy.
Joy.
Joy.
Joy. Joy.
Joy.
Joy.
Joy. Joy.
Imagine that. American politics. Joyful again.
Yeah. Have you noticed how many of those people are actually paid journalists for major corporate media entities who were just fine repeating the talking point over and over and over again? It's like they don't have a mind of their own. And they also think their viewers are morons. They think they're stupid. There's upteen different video streamers who do very similar content to what we do right here on this show, but we all have our different style. We have our different approach, and we don't all read the same script. Maybe we'd be more effective if we did. I don't know, but I wouldn't take a job like that for all the tea in China. Am I allowed to say tea in China? Is that racist? I'm sorry if it is. Again, Western Lensman finds this and promotes it, and we love it. In fact, there's one other example of this. Do you remember when Chuck Schumer decided he was going to fight the Republicans on the budget proposal, even if it meant shutting down the government, and then within like 15 hours changed his mind and said, all right, fine. We'll fund the government. We're not going to have a shutdown. And everybody was angry at him. Everyone thought Chuck Schumer was terrible. They were all throwing Chuck Schumer under the bus, which, by the way, didn't really work, because last I checked, Chuck Schumer's still the minority leader in the Senate, mostly because nobody else wants the job. But at that moment, in that moment, as we were experiencing that moment, Democrats, reporters, teleprompter readers, they all seem to have the same script again. I mean, not now, but back in that moment. Remember?
The strength that we have is in this moment.
Listen to your constituents. Center them in this moment.
But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment.
I think about what's happening, in this moment.
What's important is that we meet this moment.
So are these current Democrats the ones to meet the moment?
What do you want to see us doing right now in this moment?
And which Democrats are actually going to stand up against Elon Musk and Donald Trump in this moment?
Fight that you all are exhibiting is not just what the base wants, but it's what this moment requires.
It's all about the moment. That was beautiful. And this time, Western Lensman brought the Brady Bunch format, which I really appreciate. That last one, by the way, was Simone Sanders. Now, she's a teleprompter reader, TV host for MSNBC, which is owned by Comcast Universal. Remember, when you spend your entertainment money, exactly what they think of you. Simone Sanders, a minute and a half ago was a spokesperson for Kamala Harris, and a minute and a half before that, a spokesperson for Bernie Sanders. But now she's a journalist. And somehow she's still repeating the same script that all those other Democrats were repeating. Who knows? She may have even written the script. But what amazes me, beyond just the fact that some of those people are teleprompter readers and journalists who are in charge of interviewing these politicians, what amazes me is not just that they're repeating it, but even when they're hearing it from like there's Jake Tapper with Jasmine Crockett, right? And Jasmine Crockett does the in this moment thing, at the moment, meeting the moment, in this moment, is Chuck Schumer rising to this moment. And Jake Tapper doesn't have a brain in his head where he can say, hey, excuse me, why do you say the same thing that every other Democrat has said on this channel for the first part of the day? Why are you all repeating the same talking point? Did somebody send you a memo? Right? That's what a normal human being would do, interacting with another human being. Instead, he just sits there with his smart guy glasses, acts like he's a journalist, and he's hearing this for the first time, which could be true because, let's face it, Jake Tapper, like the rest of America, probably doesn't watch CNN. But when it comes to the repeating the same talking point script over and over again across multiple media platforms, we have to have a special award today. And this one comes at the behest not of Western Lensman, but another great account that I subscribe to on X, Maze Moore. He has done something that goes well beyond just finding the talking point within a week, the chaos, or joy. No. He has tracked Bernie Sanders over the decades. Now, Bernie Sanders, of course, is going on a national tour. Who's paying for that, by the way? Funny how no journalists are interested in who's paying for Bernie Sanders to fly to Coachella Valley and introduce some rock band before they perform with all the weed and the mushrooms. Anyway, the name of his tour that he's on right now is Stop the Oligarchy. It's the Stop the Oligarchy tour. Stop the Oligarchy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Sanders knows this script very well. Because, well, like a revival of Cats, now and forever, Bernie Sanders has been singing the oligarchy song for decades.
This great country of ours is moving very rapidly in the direction of oligarchy. The United States of America today is increasingly becoming an oligarchy. More and more moving toward an oligarchy. We are moving in the direction of oligarchy. We will move even more rapidly in the direction of an oligarchy. This great country is evolving into an oligarchic society. It is called oligarchy, and that is the system we are rapidly moving toward. This is a budget that moves our country rapidly into the direction of oligarchy. A handful of billionaires are moving this entire planet toward an oligarchic society.
Start off with the bad news, which is pretty bad, and that is that under Donald Trump, this country is hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy.
Under Donald Trump, we're hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy, which is very different than in 1993 when under Bill Clinton, we were hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy, or in 2007 when under George Bush, we were hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy. And then in 2012, 14, and 15, when under Barack Obama, we were rapidly hurtling toward oligarchy. And then in 17 and 18, believe it or not, under Trump the first time, we were hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy. At no point over those decades did any paid journalist on any of the major cable or broadcast networks say, with all due respect, Senator or former Congressman Sanders been saying the same thing since, the solid gold dancers were still a thing. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe this oligarchy thing is just a figment of your imagination. Maybe you're just a communist hack who vacationed on his honeymoon in the Soviet Union, like the actual Soviet Union when it was run by Brezhnev, even, not even Gorbachev. By the way, if you go look at some Cold War era history from East Germany and the Soviet Union or Poland or Czechoslovakia, you know, they have Cold War museums from the Iron Curtain. These now free countries who were on the other side of the Iron Curtain. They were under the iron fist of the Soviet Union. And do you know what communists back then would always accuse the West, you know, the free West, the free market West, the liberty-filled West, you know, the good guys in the Cold War, the ones who won, you know, the Reagan, Thatcher, John Paul II West. Do you know what they would constantly call Western civilization, Western economies, free democratic nations? Do you know what they would call us? Oligarchies. That was the word they would use all the time. Oligarchy. And now this is not only Bernie Sanders' talking point over the decades, like 30 years worth, but it's also mainstream Democrat Party talking points. There's no difference really at this point. If you embrace free market principles, if you embrace reducing the federal government and getting government regulations out of the lives of the free citizenry of this nation, you are an oligarch because, well, it's the same propaganda they've always had. Whether it's the propaganda of chaos, 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 or the propaganda of joy, 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 or the propaganda of in this moment, or the propaganda of oligarchy, oligarchy, oligarchy. It all reduces down to the same common denominator. It's propaganda. And the media plays along willingly. Hey, I mentioned Shameless Liars. That is the name of my book. It's about the 2024 presidential election. It's full of the lies that the media told about Donald Trump and the lies they told to cover up Joe Biden's health and Kamala Harris's lack of intelligence. Check out my book. You can get it at hardcover, paperback, or the audiobook. I narrate it myself. It's called Shameless Liars: How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant, because it's a whole new world now. We don't need the gatekeepers in corporate media to tell us what we can and can't see. We go direct to you and you come direct to us, and we love it. And it all changed last year. Read my book and it'll tell you everything you need to know about it. Shameless Liars. Buy it today. Thank you. Now, we have a special place in our heart for our hatred of CNN and their content, and we didn't think they could get any worse. But they did. But good for you, CNN, you go-getters. You keep outdoing yourself. They have a special about extremism in America. And spoiler alert, it's almost all about you. Because, you know, you didn't vote the way all those journalists and anchors and teleprompter readers on CNN demanded that you vote. You went ahead and voted for Donald Trump along with the majority of your countrymen in America. Therefore, you're an extremist. And so watch this one snippet that's really making the rounds. There's a lot in this show that we're going to share with you, but this in particular will catch your hair on fire. This is Taylor Lorenz. Up until a few months ago, she was a reporter in good standing for the Washington Post. Before that, the New York Times. And now that she's independent, she's been focusing on Luigi Mangione. You know, the accused murderer who shot in cold blood the CEO of a health insurance company on the streets of New York. She has made him a cause celeb. And she was asked about that. And here's what she had to say.
Hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, you know, we don't stand murderers of all sorts and we give them Netflix shows. There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles the sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. And you see that in moments like this. And I can tell you, I saw the biggest audience growth that I've ever seen because people were like, oh, some journalist is actually speaking to the anger that we feel.
The women who got her outside court in New York,
So you're going to see women, especially, that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
Yeah, I just realized women will literally date an assassin before they swipe right on me. That's where we are. I'm sure you wouldn't like to be compared to a Trump supporter. Some of how people cannot understand why people have sympathies for Mangione strikes me as the same as a lot of media not understanding why people support Trump.
I totally agree.
It's because a lot of people are just really, really desperate.
They want somebody to take on the system. They want somebody to tear down these barbaric establishment institutions.
Where to begin? First, I hope you caught the fact that the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, the head of the executive branch of our government, and the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, who has been elected to the presidency for a second time, some would say a third time, who won overwhelmingly in this last election, not only the popular vote, which really isn't a thing in America, but if you care about that, he won it, and he won every single swing state across the board, probably the most dominant electoral performance we've seen in decades. He was just compared to a cold-blooded murderer. Without hesitation, without even blinking, they made that comparison. And I pretend like they've made some sort of really wise, circumspect, intellectual observation. I hope you caught that. I also want to break down a couple of other things here. Let's watch it together.
See these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer, when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts, and we give them Netflix shows.
So we give murderers Netflix shows? Taylor, those are documentaries about the murderers. Like, I'm sorry you don't like the fact that people are into crime drama or true crime shows, but they're not to lionize and celebrate their murderers. I mean, unless you talk about the freaking Menendez brothers, which I'm with you. It's disgusting and despicable. But I think you're taking the wrong lesson from people's obsession with these murders. I mean, she is no different than one of the Manson girls right here. But it actually gets worse.
There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles that sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. And you see that in moments like this. And I can tell you, I saw the biggest audience growth that I've ever seen, because people were like, oh, some journalist is actually speaking to the anger that we feel.
I think she's taking the wrong lesson from that too. I have no doubt that this is the biggest audience growth that she's ever seen. See, up until now, her wheelhouse for the Washington Post and the New York Times was to pretend like she was a teenager on social media. Yeah, by the way, as you see this woman talk, you should know she's in her mid-40s. The joke around the internet about her was that she was like 60 or 70 years old. She's in her mid-40s, but she acts like, dresses like, wears her hair like, and talks like she's a teenager. She would, and her profile picture on TikTok and Instagram made her look like she was like 17, 18 years old. She would slip into the DMs of minors, including Kellyanne Conway's daughter when she was like 15 years old, befriend them and have them tell her secrets about her parents. And then she would report on this to the Washington Post and New York Times about the social media culture of young people in America. She's a predator. And I have no doubt that she's had this big growth surge in her audience. Number one, because that shtick was getting old over the last 10 years. But number two, yeah, there is a fascination with murder in this country. But she's taking this growth that she's had in her audience by covering the Luigi Mangione murder of this health insurance CEO as some sort of validation for the motive behind the murder. The two don't go hand in hand. I assure you, I could throw a lot of garbage at you every day on this show. Some real sewer-dwelling, lowest common denominator crap. and we probably have a bigger audience. But I have more respect for you and more respect for myself than to do that. Not so much Taylor Lorenz. This is gross. But even grosser is the CNN guy's response to all of this.
The women who gather outside court in New York.
So you're going to see women, especially, that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome.
Did I mention she's in her 40s? These women are going to be like, oh my God. It's just rich and he's handsome and he's famous. He's famous, but he's got a bullet in the man's back. He's famous because of ghouls like her putting a murderer on a pedestal. This man killed a woman's husband. There is a woman right now who was happily married, who is now a widow and has to raise her children alone because of the murderer that she's now lionized. I can't continue here, except to point out this moment that somebody grabbed with the caption that sort of says it all. I mean, that is an indictment of her. That is an indictment of Taylor Lorenz, that those words even came out of her mouth. But for a moment here, just for a moment, as we're condemning her, rightly so, for this lack of morality and lack of basic right and wrong, can we just pause a moment and spend a little more time, not on Taylor Lorenz, but on this guy? What is that? That's his face as he hears this woman talking about a cold-blooded murder, saying he's a person that seems like this morally good man, and he's famous and he's handsome, and gosh, it's no wonder that my audience has grown. And here's this guy thinking, boy, I hope it makes my audience grow too. I mean, this is what CNN put out there as the conversation about this murderer. And the show is called The Rise of Extremism in America, or it's not called that, but it's supposed to focus on it. And most of the conversation is about Trump supporters and how extreme they are. They have one moment to talk about this murderer. And please, if I did a show, a 1-hour show with the resources and staff and budget of CNN about the rise of extremism in America, I promise you that I would focus on, I don't know, the arson who just tried to murder the governor of Pennsylvania. He ain't no Trump guy. Or how about the people who are firebombing innocent people who drive Teslas or Tesla dealerships? They ain't Trump guys. How about Antifa, who have taken over major cities in this country during the BLM riots? Or how about every single college campus when someone who agrees with me politically shows up and they have to deal with the violence that goes along on a college campus, with the violence that goes along with those appearances? And yet none of that seemed to make it into this show. They talk about Luigi Mangione, and this is what CNN gives their viewers. That right there. I'll give you a perfect example. Here, watch this clip from the same show.
America was found, make America great again to when they came and massacred the indigenous people, millions and millions of indigenous people.
But by supporting the murder of a healthcare CEO, doesn't that make your side as culpable?
I don't hear them condemning the Proud Boys, who he said stand by, whatever they start. Once they start condemning them, then I will reassess. But until then, no, I'm not reassessing.
Yeah.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
And while America's roots are soaked in bloodshed, violence in the country today is mostly from right-wing extremism. From Oklahoma City to Charlottesville to January 6th. There is simply no equivalent on the left.
What? There's no equivalent on the left. So first of all, he starts with Timothy McVeigh, which, I'm sorry, if you actually look at what he believed politically, it doesn't have a whole lot to do with conservatives in America. But that was the mid-90s. Then you go all the way to Charlottesville and then January 6th. And apparently there's no equivalent on the left. There's no equivalent on the left? Donnie O'Sullivan? And maybe it's me, but I've got a thing about some dude with a foreign accent going on television airwaves and lecturing me about the politics in my country. You're doing a special about violent extremism in politics, and you're from Ireland? Ireland? Do you know anything about your country's history, Donny? Or about what's going on in your country right now? But this is what passes muster for intellectual broadcast news journalism at CNN. And if this guy seems familiar to you, there's a reason for that. Remember this golden oldie from the same dude with the same Irish accent? He should be going to get a Guinness and maybe having some Lucky Charms. But instead, he's taking his ignorance about the United States of America and showing the entire world what a buffoon he is.
Some people I've been speaking to Trump recently have been saying America is not a democracy, it's a republic.
We've always been a democracy, first of all. I mean, we used to have freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We used to have that too. Now they're picking on the Christians and the Jewish people. I mean, how much more can we take?
Are you concerned if Trump loses?
Yeah.
That there will be another January 6th?
No, I think there will be a civil war. That's what I think will happen.
And Omar, look, there is, of course, a legitimate debate, discussion to be had on what form of democracy we have here in the United States. Direct democracy, representative democracy, in fact, constitutional republic, which you heard people mention in that piece, that is a form of democracy. But look, this is not actually a debate about government, about democracy. It's an attack on democracy. People have heard the warnings that Trump is a danger to democracy. And therefore, you have people trying to convince others that, well, the United States isn't a democracy in the first place, and therefore Trump can't be a threat. Homer?
Okay, so that's a hell of a leap that he took there. But look at the lower third chyron there. Some Trump supporters say America isn't a democracy. And he does this whole feature interviewing people saying, you won't believe this, but there are people out there who don't think America is a democracy, who think that America is a constitutional republic. Well, they think that because it's true. I'm like in La La Land here with this guy. This is the same guy. And again, this is the intellectual smart set on the Upper West Side of Manhattan who give the green light for these exposés by Donny O'Sullivan, who's trying to explain to you that these violent extremists who work with the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, don't think that America is a democracy. They think it's a constitutional republic. That's exactly what we are. We use democratic methods to choose our representatives, but they're 100% true. And what was that last takeaway? Well, if we're not a democracy, then Trump can't be a threat to it.
The warnings that Trump is a danger to democracy, and therefore you have people trying to convince others that, well, the United States isn't a democracy in the first place, and therefore Trump can't be a threat. Homer?
Wow. All right, listen, I don't want to pile on this guy, or make fun of his accent or anything like that, because it's charming and probably the most charming thing about him. And he has done some good journalism, to be sure. In fact, this may be our very favorite clip that Donny O'Sullivan has brought to the table. Here it is. Once again, this is his job. They send him out to try to get Trump supporters, preferably with a MAGA hat, to say something outrageous. And on this day, it worked. And it's gold.
What's your name, sir? My name is Go Fuck Yourself.
Right. And are you from Ohio?
No.
I don't know why, but the follow-up question, are you from Ohio, might be my favorite part. What? Okay, great. Just one other question. Are you from Ohio? Like, that would make a difference. This guy's a hero.
What's your name, sir? My name is Go Fuck Yourself.
Right. And are you from Ohio?
No.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's CNN for you. That's CNN telling you that you're the problem because you appropriately and correctly know that this is a constitutional republic and not a democracy. We just use democracy to choose our representatives in this constitutional republic. That you're the problem because you voted for Trump along with the majority of this nation. And you're the problem because you can't yuck it up and laugh about what a sexy dreamboat a cold-blooded murderer is. That's what CNN thinks of you. And I'm glad you don't watch them because they don't deserve your eyeballs. Thanks for planting them here instead. All right. That's our Monday show, guys. Thank you so much. Angela, thank you for that $5 super chat. Angela's amazing with the super chats every day. In an attempt to stop raising clueless dunces, can we bring back Schoolhouse Rock? We shouldn't try to remake Schoolhouse Rock, but the OGs are out there. When we homeschooled my kids, we used Schoolhouse Rock all the time. In fact, I used to work in theater. I actually started a children's theater program for a while there when my kids were little. It was sort of like a sideline gig that I did and it was cool. And there's a show out there called Schoolhouse Rock Live. We did the Schoolhouse Rock, all the musical numbers with a bunch of kids on stage doing it live. It was awesome. Great music. By the way, the music and lyrics for Schoolhouse Rock, or the lyrics, I should say, written by a woman named Lynn Ahrens, a great lyricist, who then went on to write the lyrics for the musical Ragtime, Once on This Island, the movie Anastasia, if you've ever seen Anastasia. And what other musical did they write? Oh, they wrote the Seussical. There was a musical based on the Dr. Seuss stories, and she wrote the lyrics to that. She's a great lyricist. Got to meet her. Got to work with her on Ragtime. Angela, thank you for that. Thank you for that super chat. Christian Ellithorpe with a $20 super chat. Thank you for that. She's like a child, Larry. Reminded me of my granddaughter would hide her face thinking you could not see her. Yes, Gretchen Whitmer. I totally thought that. It's like, my eyes are closed, so you can't see me. All of us, we all had kids that did that when they were like toddlers, right? My eyes are closed. You can't see me. I'm invisible now. Oh, I'm Gretchen Whitmer. If I just do this, no one will see me. That would have been awesome if she put my book up instead of that folder. How great would that have been? Look at me. Look at me. Where'd Larry go? Where'd Larry go? Thank you, Christian. That's hilarious. Well done, sir. Angela, $5 super chat. Prayers for Josh Shapiro and his family. The violence and evil must end. I don't care what his politics. He's God's creation, an American citizen. Well, of course. Absolutely. And have you noticed you haven't heard much more about Josh Shapiro? I assure you, if that was some MAGA hat wearing Trump supporter, it would be nonstop coverage. And it was so bizarre that it was like all of a sudden, all of these people are stepping forward. This kind of violence and intimidation and destruction has no place in American politics. Where the fuck have you people been for the last several weeks as innocent people who have been dodging Molotov cocktails because they happen to drive a Tesla? And you were like, well, yeah, we are not in support of that, but you have to understand that but. I love the but. Well done, Angela. You're absolutely right. Prayers for Shapiro and his family. It's disgusting.
Hey, Larry, can I have you screen the next one from Ball State Alum 96 before I put it on the screen?
Sure. Hang on. Yikes. Well, I mean, it's a bit much, isn't it? That's not like Jeff. I think he's just trying to be Randy. I don't know. You're a better arbiter of good taste than I am. Let me just say that our friend Ball State alum, who's a regular viewer of the show and has actually, by the way, supported my content since my old Andrew Breitbart days, gave us a very generous $10 super chat. And he just wanted everybody to know that the Stephen Miller video that we started the show with touched him in ways that usually an OnlyFans model would. He was in his own way aroused. I think he's speaking euphemistically, but how's that?
This is a family-friendly program.
It is a family-friendly program. You're right. Thank you, though, for that, Ball State alum. He is from Ball State, Indiana, which we used to refer to as, never mind, Alberto Gorin with a non-comment €11 super chat to support what we're doing. And thank you for that, Alberto. That means a lot to us. I appreciate it. Loco Valdez, also known as Richard McCarthy. That's an interesting combination. Little support for Larry and YouTube gets their due too. Yes, that's true. YouTube does take a little bit out of this, but that's all right. We appreciate it. Thank you, Loco, or shall I say Richard. We appreciate that $20 super chat. That's a super, super big one. I appreciate that very much. You rock. Angela with the $2 super chat. If she's a journalist, Joe Biden was president. Oh, you mean Taylor Lorenz's? Yeah, Taylor Lorenz is a nightmare. Thank you, Angela, for that $2 super chat. Well said. Richard Murray with a $10 super chat. Whitmer demonstrates that the Democrats are becoming victims of their own radicalization of their base. That's the thing. You're 100% right. They dwell on this. They live off of it. They feed off of it. They raise money off of it. They get lots of publicity and attention out of it. But then when they actually have to somehow emerge and present themselves to just regular people, they're lost, because it's not like we don't know that there's a paper trail here of all of your radicalism. So the Democrats have boxed themselves into a corner at this point on all of this stuff, and they continue to go down that lane. It's a great observation, Richard. I appreciate the $10 super chat. We also have a $5 super chat over on Rumble from Arthur Brogdon, who says, do any of you know anything? Stephen Miller? No. That's true. That's what it's like. Anybody? Anyone? He was doing the Ferris Bueller's Day Off thing. Class? Anyone? Bueller? He's like, do any of you know anything about what you're asking me about? The answer is no. They don't. Here's the thing. There's two things that you always need to know about journalists in Washington, D.C. for the most part, at least the ones that you see that are working for major corporations on CNN, broadcast news, et cetera, et cetera. There's two things that they have in common. They're not very smart, and they're very lazy. And that's a deadly combination, and doesn't keep you informed and enlightened so that you can be an educated voting citizenry. Here on this show and our partners at Town Hall, we think the opposite. We think the more you know, the more information you have, the better off you are. I don't try to tell you what to think or how to think. I just show you what's out there, give you my opinion, and I respect you enough to reach your conclusions. And that's why we have such a great time with this show. And we can't wait to do tomorrow's program. Thanks for watching. We'll be back same time, same place. In the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.